Capitol Hill security. Why the push to secure the national landmark faces an uncertain future. COVID-19 hate crimes. What President Joe Biden is saying about America's newest law. Tracking tension. The latest on the attacks in the Holy Land and how the international community is trying to stop the violence. And special celebration. How Jesuits are honoring St. Ignatius of Loyola. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, May 20th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Despite GOP leadership advising House Republicans to not pass the bill to create a January 6th commission, today a party line vote took place on another bill for more spending for extra security at the Capitol. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
House Democrats put together the $1.9 billion capital spending bill to help harden up the Capitol. But Republicans say that there are many items that concern them, one of which is $250 million that's allocated for only future Capitol needs. Some even question, is the bill needed at all?
These are all issues that we've been well aware of.
The top Republican of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Devin Nunes, tells me the reason people were able to break into the Capitol on January 6th, the House Speaker failed to listen to intel reports.
For whatever reason, Pelosi, who's the mayor of the Capitol as the Speaker of the House, she didn't do it, even though she was warned. She also didn't have the National Guard there. She just would have had the fencing that we normally have with the National Guard there. It would not have been a problem.
But in the end, the $1.9 billion bill created by Democratic Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro passed the House.
It is our responsibility to move with dispatch, provide the resources necessary to protect the Capitol and those who work and visit here.
The Congresswoman says it was created with an eye toward recommendations from the task force.
The supplemental is narrowly tailored to January 6th and related security needs. It contains $1.9 billion in emergency funding, and it pays for direct costs of the attack.
But Congressman Rodney Davis, ranking member of the House Administration Committee, tells me he's concerned with the bill permanently establishing the National Guard as the quick reaction force on the Hill. Others say the bill covers too much on emergency spending for reimbursements rather than permanent staffing increases such as for Capitol Police. Examples include reimbursing the National Guard $521 million and the District of Columbia nearly $67 million for their costs, helping to secure the Capitol since January 6. Give Capitol Police nearly $44 million for overtime, retention bonuses, and equipment replacement. And give the Department of Justice an additional $39.5 million to prosecute suspects in the riot, after more than 430 suspects have been charged so far. The bill now heads to the Senate, where it needs 10 Republicans to sign off on it before it's headed to the president's desk. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
After getting overwhelming congressional approval, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act was just signed into law by President Joe Biden. Its purpose, better protect Asian Americans from physical attacks that soared during the pandemic. The president made it clear that he will not tolerate such hate, violence, and bigotry aimed at fellow Americans. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening. We've seen the horrific videos of Asian Americans just walking down the street, minding their own business, and then suddenly being violently attacked. Well, today, the president in a speech said hate crimes are underreported. He said the new law will improve online reporting of hate crimes, raise awareness, and speed up their investigations.
With pen in hand in the East Room of the White House, President Joe Biden puts his signature on the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act.
We need to unite as one people, one nation, one America.
The president said the violence against Asian Americans must stop.
And I believe with every fiber of my being that there are simple core values and beliefs that should bring us together as Americans. One of them is standing together against hate.
Vice President Kamala Harris says during the pandemic, more than 6,600 anti-Asian hate incidents were reported, mostly by women.
In my life, my lived experience, I have seen how hate can pervade our communities.
Meanwhile, in the press briefing room, reaction to the new Texas law aimed at saving more unborn lives from abortion.
This is the most restrictive measure yet in the nation, and the most restrictive recent assault on women's fundamental rights under Roe v. Wade. And critical rights continue to come under withering and extreme attack around the country.
And the press secretary repeated the president's position on Roe.
But certainly the president supports and believes we should codify Roe v. Wade, and that is his view, regardless of these backward-looking steps that are being taken by states in the country.
Now, in signing the heartbeat bill into law, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said, quote, "Our Creator endowed us with the right to life, and yet millions of children lose their right to life every year because of abortion." At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining us now is Vince Coglianese, Editorial Director at the Daily Caller. Vince, welcome back. Always great to be with you. As we just heard from Owen, President Biden is taking a stand against hate crimes against Asian Americans. That said, what have we heard from the president about the rise in anti-Semitic attacks, the most recent in Los Angeles and New York City, and also attacks and vandalism on Catholic parishes?
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about all of those attacks on this issue of anti-Asian hate crimes. First and foremost, what you're looking at is not just the president or Democrats condemning them. It's all Republicans. In fact, that bill passed in the Senate, I think 94-1. It was overwhelming, the effort to condemn anti-Asian hate crimes. And it's a part of a really troubling trend in the United States that involves all crime going up substantially over the course of the past year against all communities. And of course, as we're talking about against Asian communities, we're also seeing lots of attacks against Jewish people, attacks against churches. I think there's a real problem with crime in the United States that Washington needs to grapple with overall.
Yeah, indeed there is. We also heard reaction from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki about the new pro-life law in Texas. She called it, in part, quote, "the most restrictive of recent assaults on women's fundamental rights under Roe v. Wade." What are your thoughts on that?
Texas has thrown down the gauntlet. They're doing everything they can to protect lives in Texas. I was looking at the numbers today to kind of assess, what happened in 2020. You're looking at so many thousands of babies who were murdered, aborted in Texas. And I believe 2/3 of them were Black or Hispanic, overwhelmingly minority babies whose lives are being extinguished in Texas. That's a really terrible story. And you have Texas coming along and saying, okay, we're going to try and stop this. We're going to set that limit very early, as soon as a fetal heartbeat is detected, because we believe this is life and it needs to be protected. And now, really, this is all coming to a head in an interesting moment for this topic, because the Supreme Court is taking up this really important case in Mississippi, where they have banned abortions after 15 weeks, which they consider viability. And it's at that point so now you have the United States Supreme Court saying they're going to assess some of the biggest questions surrounding abortion in the United States. I think Texas has just thrown another state law into the mix for the types of things we could see the Supreme Court rule on coming up in the next year.
Yeah, indeed. I want to switch gears just a little bit here. As you know, COVID-19 and its origins continues to be top of mind, in particular if it came from the Wuhan lab. Now, previously, that theory was basically called a conspiracy, but just yesterday, the CDC director admitted that the lab origin of COVID is a possibility. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. This is one of those things where a lot of people who knew better stuck their heads in the sand because they didn't like the former president of the United States being in office. And in particular, Donald Trump had advanced the idea that this may have actually come from that level 4 bioresearch lab in Wuhan, China, known as the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So as a result, there were many experts who just downright refused to let that be something that they would talk about in public. But quietly behind the scenes, a lot of scientists we now know were acknowledging that there was a chance that this virus did come from that lab. And this week, you saw the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, admit as much. And remember, the old CDC director under Donald Trump, Robert Redfield, said the same thing. In fact, he believes that it definitely came, or most likely came, from that lab. And getting to the bottom of this, very important, because there's a chance, a big one, that United States taxpayer dollars went into the manipulation of the virus that eventually became COVID-19. If those facts can even be proven, if that turns out to be true, the United States has a lot of soul searching to do about the types of research we're funding, especially in places like communist China.
Well, Vince, unfortunately, I have to leave it right there. Thanks so much for coming on and for your analysis today. We appreciate it. Vince Coglianese, Editorial Director at the Daily Caller. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, the Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey is facing a clergy abuse lawsuit against its late Archbishop Peter Garrity. It alleges the former Archbishop deceived a struggling family and exploited a preschool girl during the 1970s. The suit seeks substantial penalties. A ceasefire between Israel and Gaza has been announced. Late in the day, the Israeli Security Cabinet approved a unilateral ceasefire to halt its military operation in the Gaza Strip. The decision came after heavy U.S. and international pressure. The timing of the truce is unclear. Prior to the announcement, Hamas rocket attacks and Israeli airstrikes continued. Prior to the ceasefire announcement, there were protests in Lebanon against the Israeli military response to the Hamas rocket attacks during the past 11 days. Similar protests were held in Muslim communities in Iraq, Oman, and Pakistan in a show of support for the Palestinians in Gaza. Alliance Defending Freedom International is working to protect women from violence.
New or evolving forms of such violence have emerged, targeting particularly girls from the earliest stages of life through practices such as sex-selective abortion, female infanticide, and fetal neglect.
Giorgio Mazzoli serves as ADF International's liaison to the UN and other world groups in Geneva. He tells our colleague at EWTN Germany more than 140 million female lives have been lost as a result of these practices. Orthodox Christians in Cyprus oppose a provocatively performed pop song which they consider sacrilegious. They are protesting El Diablo, which its singer calls a metaphor for an abusive love. The Orthodox Church of Cyprus said its entry into the Eurovision Song Contest was a mockery to faith and morality. El Diablo has made the tomorrow night's finals. Malta's president says he would rather resign than sign a bill to decriminalize abortion. President George Vila was talking about a bill that's now in Malta's parliament. It is the first ever proposal for abortion decriminalization in the majority Catholic nation. It faces significant opposition. As a medical doctor, Vila likens the bill to authorizing murder. Coming up, Vatican finances, the challenge facing the Holy See. And St. Ignatius of Loyola, how the founder of the largest Catholic religious order is being remembered. The Vatican faces a huge task to modernize its finances. That is the assessment of Ruth Kelly, who is on the Council to Improve Financial Transparency. A board of cardinals and laity will report to Pope Francis about the books for the Holy See, the Curia, and Vatican City State. For more details on this important story, visit our partners at CatholicNewsAgency.com. The Society of Jesus kicks off a year of renewal dedicated to its founder, St. Ignatius of Loyola. This year marks the 500th anniversary of the conversion of St. Ignatius of Loyola. He was injured in battle, and during a second rehabilitation for his injuries, he felt a calling to Christ. He founded the Jesuits, in order with more than 16,000 members worldwide. Joining us now from Rome is Father Mark Lewis, Vice Rector of the Pontifical Gregorian University. Father Mark, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. Tell us about the anniversary, also called as Ignatian Year. What are some of the events?
So today we began here at the Gregorian University with an opening series of lectures, including an address by our Father General, who was actually celebrating Mass in Pamplona, Spain, as well to open the Ignatian Year. So we began the celebration today, May 20th, the anniversary of Ignatius's wound at Pamplona. and it will go until March 22nd of 2022, the date of St. Ignatius's canonization.
And for those who may not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit about your founder, St. Ignatius of Loyola?
So St. Ignatius was a Basque nobleman, minor nobility, who lived at the very end of the 15th and into the 16th century. He had a conversion experience after being injured in battle against the French in Pamplona in 1521. He is probably best known to the Catholic world for his spiritual exercises that really call forth a more personal encounter with Jesus Christ and helps us to really follow Christ more closely. So he founded the Jesuits in 1540 and was the first general until he died in 1556.
Can you talk to us maybe about some of the things that are unique to the Jesuits around the world?
So usually if people know Jesuits, they think of schools, high schools, colleges, universities in the United States, and the United States basketball teams in the Final Four. But we are probably, the charism maybe most important are the spiritual exercises that Jesuits give around the world. We have also more Jesuits involved in missionary activities around the world than in education. So that's usually one of those surprise things. But I think the idea of the Society of Jesus is to be available to missions anywhere in the world, usually directed by the Pope or the General, and to carry a certain amount of intellectual equipment into that battle. And also, like I say, this year especially, I think we're really emphasizing the spiritual exercises and the following of Christ.
We have about a minute left or so, but I'm wondering, how does having a Jesuit Pope, how does that influence your community? In what ways?
I think that's a wonderful question, and I'm not sure that we really have an answer for it yet. Francis is the first Jesuit Pope, and I think he brings, if you look at his papacy, he brings an awful lot of the Jesuit charism to it, especially the spiritual exercises. I think he feels somewhat comfortable sending us, asking us to take on missions. When he does his visits, when he's been traveling, he always tries to make a point of visiting local Jesuit communities and speaking to them about Jesuit life, the spiritual exercises, and the missions that they're undertaking in those specific places. So there's a relationship. I imagine other religious orders who have more experience of this understand the relationship better. We're still exploring it, I think.
Well, Father, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really do appreciate it. Father Mark Lewis, Vice Rector of the Pontifical Gregorian University, thank you again.
Thank you. God bless.
Up next, new novena, why Catholics are being called to pray to Our Lady of Confidence. Tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, the governor of Mississippi weighs in on the Supreme Court's decision to hear the state's pro-life law banning abortions after 15 weeks.
For me, and I think so many other pro-lifers, which state's law gets before the court is not that important. It's just that we see these unborn babies, literally millions and millions of unborn babies, that get protected and ultimately get born and hopefully serve very productive lives.
Republican Governor Tate Reeves tells host Catherine Hadro about why he signed the pro-life measure in the first place. That is tonight on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly at 10 p.m. Eastern. Check EWTN.com for other airing times. And finally tonight, a religious order of missionary priests is starting a novena today, and they are asking the faithful to join them. The Novena to Our Lady of Confidence is an initiative by the Pontifical Institute of Foreign Missions, also known as PIME. The prayer asks Our Lady to intercede for us, saying in part, quote, "If such a title has been given to you, it is a sure sign that no one has recourse to you in vain." The novena begins today and ends next Friday. Father Ken Mazur, Regional Superior for PIME Missionaries in the U.S., joins us now. Father Ken, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it. First off, tell us a little bit about Our Lady of Confidence and why you dedicated this novena to her.
We've been praying this novena to Our Lady of Confidence for about 60 years now here in the United States. There's a picture that was painted in the 1600s by an Italian artist and was given to a convent of Poor Clares in northern Italy. And the title of the painting was Our Lady of Confidence. The picture eventually made its way to Rome, to one of the pontifical seminaries. At the beginning of the 1900s, at the beginning of World War I, all of the Italian seminarians were called or drafted to fight in the war. Before they left for war, for battle, they all prayed in front of this picture, "My mother, my confidence, please protect me." One of the seminarians who prayed in front of the picture was Angelo Roncalli, who eventually became Saint Pope John the 23rd. And all of the seminarians that prayed in front of this picture of Our Lady of Confidence returned to the seminary safely. None of them were killed in battle. A few decades later, one of our priests, one of the PIME missionaries from Rome, was given a copy of this painting. And he brought it over to the United States, and we placed it in our chapel in our former seminary here in Michigan. And that's when we began this novena to Our Lady of Confidence. And so we've been praying it every year during the month of May, as I said, for more than 60 years.
That's wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit more about the novena itself and the prayers that you'll be saying?
It's just a very simple prayer. And if you go to our website or if you go to our Facebook page, it's about 3 minutes, a 3-minute prayer of a novena. And as you said at the very beginning, it says, anybody who has recourse to Mary will not have recourse in vain. We know that if you pray to your mother, she's always going to look after you. And so we pray with great trust and great confidence. The words in Italian that the seminarians pray, my mother, my confidence, mia madre, mia fiducia.
And is there a reason why it's starting now and ending next Friday? Any significance to those dates?
Actually, no. We normally do it earlier in May, and it usually encompasses Mother's Day. But we just, for various reasons, we put it in later May. But there's no reason for that.
And also, I know you kind of briefly talked about this, but is there any way for the faithful to follow along? And if we want to send a prayer request, how can we do that?
Absolutely. In fact, if you go to our Facebook page or our Instagram page, it's PIME, M as in Michigan, E, PIME Missionaries. Father Daniele, who's the head of our mission center here in Detroit, it will pray the prayer, will pray the novena prayer every day beginning today for 9 days. And there's also a link for you to send your prayer requests. And all those requests are printed out every day. We place them in our chapel underneath the altar before the picture of Our Lady of Confidence as we pray, the community prays together this prayer.
Well, Father Ken, thank you so much for your time today and joining us. We really appreciate it. Father Ken Mazur, Regional Superior for PIME Missionaries in the U.S. Thank you again, and God bless.
Thank you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.